What's going on, everyone? Disc and Young here, back again this week. This week I'm going to be talking about a flip project I went and looked at today. Just kind of going through the initial analysis, you could say, into what I do when I look at a flip project. I usually have this on an Excel spreadsheet. It's kind of just formatted a little differently, but this is all pretty much the same information that you can have. And you can do this on site or when you get back, either way. It's just good to know some of these numbers off the top of your head. So this one, higher end neighborhood. It's a big house. Could probably get it for, I'm hoping, maybe $385. Closing costs, $9,600. In this case, I would have to pay the seller's closing costs, including excise, their part of title, escrow, everything. So I'd have to pay all of their closing costs. So that would be $9,600 in this case. Holding costs for me for taxes, insurance, and utilities. I always run everything at 6 months. Even if you think you can get done with a project in a month or 2 months, I like to work at worst case scenario, right? What's the worst case scenario? 6 months. That gives me plenty of time, right? So I have all these numbers that you'll see here. They're 6 months of numbers. So 6 months for tax, insurance, and utilities. $35.30 for this one. And all these are actual real numbers as well, by the way. I look up everything. I look up the taxes, everything before, so they're actual numbers. Interest on my money. In this case, I'd probably want to get either private or hard money on this. I wouldn't want to use cash or anything like that. I'd rather use somebody else's money and utilize somebody else's money in this case. So you have to pay for that though, right? So usually hard money is going to be around 12%, 9 to 12%. Worst case scenario, 12%. Again, 6 months. And this number is what I would pay in 6 months at 12% interest. This doesn't include any points. Some private money or hard money people will do a video on that as well. We'll ask for 1 or 2 or 3 points up front. This is not having any of those. This number is also based on this number plus the repair costs, or the repair costs. So those total, that would be my money cost. So repairs, this is just a big house. It's about 2,600 square feet. Mostly cosmetic stuff though. It's nothing huge or big, but still it's in a nicer neighborhood, so I'm gonna have to have higher end finishes. So it's gonna cost me probably about $65,000 to fix this one up to the quality that we need it to be to sell at this price. $585 I think would be a reasonable sales price at this in this neighborhood. That is again using higher end finishes though. So once we have that, we can kind of work backwards from there. Selling costs. So when I go to sell the property, when I'm done with it, it's going to cost me about $14,629 to sell it. That's other side broker fee, title escrow, recording fee, that kind of thing. So that would be that number. So if you take this $585 sales price minus your cost of selling minus all of these numbers combined up here, which is $96,106.50. So if you subtract that, and that, you'll get $79,665. That would be your profit. And again, this is before taxes. Okay, this doesn't include any capital gains taxes. So that's going to be different for a little bit for everybody. So I encourage you to look and talk to your accountant before running those numbers. On this, that $79,665 would be 20% on my initial investment of this plus this. So I usually typically like to see 30% percent return on my initial investment. That gives me a good cushion. You can say, hey, Diskin, I'm okay with even a 15% return on my money or anything like that. Typically, in my experience, things are going to happen during the rehab project. It's going to make it more expensive. It's really nice to have at least a 10% buffer in there, and that's why I'm usually okay with 20%, but I like to have that 30% number. So this one, it would be pretty tight. That number obviously looks pretty good. It would be a little bit easier of a flip because it's mostly cosmetic stuff, so I wouldn't have to be ripping into walls or anything like that. So odds of me finding something surprising would not be very high. I'd probably have a quick little inspection with my contractor on this place before to just make sure, hey, it looks solid all the way around. But yeah, this is what I do. When I go through the house, I start adding up this number, and we'll do also a video on that one day on doing that in a house. But I kind of just jot down on a piece of paper that. I get back to my office, and then I figure out all the rest of these numbers pretty quickly from there. So that's what I do. I usually put in an Excel spreadsheet. It's easy. It'll calculate all myself or by itself. And then I determine from there, do I feel that the risk is worth pursuing? This one I think we might pursue. This would be a big thing to look into on this one, though. Have your private money or hard money people lined up from the beginning so you can take action when you do find a project. So there you go, guys. That's kind of my initial quick analysis when I'm looking at a flip. Hope it's somewhat helpful. Reach out if you have any questions on my strategy when looking at it or anything like that. See you guys next week.